All right, so we're now live. Hi, everyone. Hello, panelists. Hello, attendees and
Hello.
listeners. I want to thank everyone who's on here with us for joining the annual Brady, California conference. This year is entitled Leading the Movement to Prevent Gun Violence. And I think, congratulations to all of the Brady, California chapters, because in many ways, you all have been leading the movement and are continuing to do so. And I know what has been a very tough year. And it's not over yet. For those of you who don't know me, I'm JJ Jamflone. I am the host of Brady's podcast, Red, Blue, and Brady, which I do hope if you don't know me, you do know the podcast and you've been listening. And for the purpose of the event, I'm going to be sort of a light EMC. And with that, I think we really should go ahead and start by playing the Brady video.
President Reagan has indeed been shot.
Jim Brady was shot in the head when a gunman tried to kill President Reagan. But that didn't stop him. Together with his wife Sarah, they fought for the first bill for background checks. They banged on every door in Congress, shook hands, not fists, found common ground and common sense, and got the Brady bill passed under President Clinton. For over 25 years, our fight has never stopped. We work across Congress, courts, and communities. We unite, not divide. Liberal and conservative, young and old, red and blue, and every shade of color to take action, not sides. We are all Brady. We are all united against gun violence.
So give yourselves all a little round of applause, I think, for being part of Brady and continuing to fight for what is right. The video that you saw, I think, again, shouldn't be a surprise to many of you. It was initially launched as part of Brady's rebrand in 2019, which shockingly was only a year ago. It might feel like a lifetime ago to some of us. But I think really like this year, the message seems more important than ever. We absolutely need to press forward. We absolutely need to be fighting as hard as we can, even in the face of continued adversity and continued tragedy, really. In particular, of course, most recently, I'm talking about what the beloved Ruth Bader Ginsburg did. We're all mourning her loss and feeling very deep concern for what lies ahead. But I do want to say that, like, I know personally that I do, and I hope that you do, take comfort in this community and in all of you just being here, all of those wonderful people who are on the panel this evening and on the panels to follow, but also everyone who is taking time out of their busy schedules to listen and learn tonight. And then days that come. I think we have to honor heroes like Justice Ginsburg and Representative Lewis, who led the way, oftentimes at the beginning in a very lonely way, led the way by remaining committed to the values and ideals that they cherished, including common sense gun violence prevention policy and the right to vote. 2020, as I've stated numerous times, can't state enough, has been rough. For a lot of reasons, for a lot of people and to a lot of communities. And just like everything else this year, I think this conference is going to be a bit different than in the past. This is my first year at Brady, so this has been my only experience with these conferences, but I know from sort of seeing the faces and from working with a lot of you, you're used to sort of a little bit more togetherness and maybe a little bit less Zoom meetings. So I do want to point out that, just that all conferences will be held virtually, which means that though, no matter where you are, whether it's in California or anywhere else, you are welcome to join. You are welcome to ask questions. You are allowed to comment, and you're allowed to interact with these really amazing experts, activists, and survivors that Brady has brought together. For all of our listeners at home, if you have any questions at any time, don't hesitate at all to share them using the Zoom question and answer function. Or by submitting a question on our Facebook live feed. And even if you have problems because you're not sure how to submit a question on the Facebook Q&A live feed or on the Zoom chat feature, go ahead, put that down in the Facebook chat, and one of our fantastic Brady reps will be able to help you figure out how to do that. We want to make sure all your questions get answered. Now, with that, I'm going to hand it over to our fearless leader, a fantastic video that was done by Brady President Chris Brown.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Brown, president of Brady, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to this year's annual conference. I have so many people to thank who made this event possible, far too many to name, but I especially want to thank Sheikah Hamilton and Brady's California president, Maddie Scott, for all of the tremendous work and leadership that it takes to put this incredible conference together year over year. Indeed, it's a hard time in America today. We are all grieving and mourning the loss of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and recognizing it means that this election is as critical as any election that has ever occurred in our lifetime. We're also obviously in the middle of a pandemic. And so I think it's so important in these kinds of times that we can continue to come together, bring subject matter experts all over the country to be able to talk and to convene and to agree what next steps have to be taken to combat gun violence in this country. Because to be clear, in addition to the coronavirus epidemic, the epidemic of gun violence continues unabated, despite the fact that most people have been behind doors since March, April timeframe. We have about 13,000 gun deaths in the United States this year. And we have millions more guns, as all of you know, that are in circulation because of the so-called COVID surge. Many of these guns are with first-time gun buyers who have no training, very likely no safe storage for those guns in homes. So we know our work remains as critical as ever, as important as ever, and that the stakes have never been higher. We know that what happens at any level in government, whether it's at the state level or at the federal level, also is very dependent on what happens in the Supreme Court. And that's why all of us are going to be raising our voices around who the next nominee should be and make sure that that nominee is chosen by the next president of this country, Joe Biden. What's important here is what's been true for a long time, thanks to the incredible leadership that's been shown by all of you in California, which is you can help lead the way for the rest of this country. California leads the nation for a reason in strong gun laws in the country, and that's because of you, because of activists like you. From micro-stamping to CalVIT funding to incredible funding around violence intervention that's been achieved. You all will continue to lead the way, and that's so critically important because what happens in California shapes what happens in the rest of the nation. As I look forward and think about this election and what we have to do next, I look to you and the decisions that you will make in this conference for your agenda for the next few years to make sure that everyone in the nation knows one important thing. While it may be that we get success electorally, and I certainly hope we do, you know that there's so much more that needs to be done to truly address the epidemic of gun violence. In communities all across this country, we need to ensure that stories are told about the impact of everyday gun violence, the trauma, the real trauma, everyday trauma that's being experienced by far too many Americans, and truly address the issue of gun violence in America as the public health epidemic it is. I look forward to working with all of you to really shape a collective, better understanding of the impact of gun violence in America, making sure everyone knows that this is a preventable tragedy, a uniquely American tragedy. And I want to say something very important to those of you who are survivors who help us with this work. Thank you. I know that this comes at a continued additional huge psychological cost. And I want to say thank you so much for taking your time. Your loved one is someone who's very important to us, very important to this movement. And I want to lift you up and make sure that your stories are told. Thank you all. I hope that you get a lot out of the next couple of days. I'm going to have to talk to Sheikah after this because I understand that I am preceding Madam Speaker. I don't want to be the person standing in between you and one of my great heroes in this world, one of the country's great heroes. Speaker Pelosi, and I'm thrilled that she's able to join you all to address you in your important work. It certainly shows just how important what you do is. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to all of the discussions that will happen with some of the other great leaders in the movement who are joining us for discussions. Thank you for joining us. What that really shows is collaboration is the key, and we will continue to drive that and to do that for the movement wherever we can. Thank you so much. Have a great few days.
It is my honor to bring the greetings of House Democrats to the advocates and leaders of the Brady United Against Gun Violence Conference. Thank you to Brady President Chris Brown, a lifelong leader in the fight against gun violence, and Brady California President Maddie Scott. Maddie is a force of nature whose courage to turn her agony over the murder of her son George into a decades-long action to end gun violence continues to be an inspiration to all of us. And thank you to all the heroes of Brady for your decades of work to end the devastating scourge of gun violence in America. I am grateful for the honor of the Gun Sense Lawmaker of the Year award I received in August, which I accepted on behalf of our House Democratic majority. The House is proud to stand with survivors and founders like you to lead a drumbeat of action for gun violence prevention, passing bipartisan background checks and legislation to close the Charleston loophole that enabled the hate crimes at Mother Emanuel, reauthorizing a strong Violence Against Women Act, and appropriating millions for CDC and NIH gun violence research for the first time in decades. Now, together, we must continue our work, never slowing down until we can ensure that every family can live free from the fear of gun violence. I am reminded of the 2016 when our beloved Congressman John Lewis, the conscience of the Congress, led a sit-in on the floor of the House called Call for Action on Gun Violence. And I said to the Capitol Police, if you're thinking of arresting John, make sure you know that you're going to have to arrest every single Democrat in the Congress. John would always encourage people, especially young people, to find a way to get in the way. In the face of the challenges ahead, from ending gun violence to crushing the coronavirus to combating racial injustice and police brutality, let us remember his call as we organize and mobilize like never before. And as we approach November, the most consequential election of our lifetime, where everything is at stake, your engagement and energy will be essential. But you know what we always say, we don't agonize, we organize. Thank you for your leadership to build a brighter, safer future for all.
Well, I think as Madam President Chris Brown pointed out, it's really unfair to have to introduce Speaker Pelosi, and then it's really unfair to have to follow Speaker Pelosi. So, burden I have to bear. I, as always, am just so, again, to echo what both Speaker Pelosi and what Chris said, I am just so in awe, especially of the individuals who have lost so much but continue to fight so hard for gun violence prevention. So I want to just take a minute right now before we move on and speak to some fantastic organizers from California. I think if I could just take a minute for you all to sort of give some time to yourselves to say thank you to yourselves for continuing this fight, which is oftentimes so hard. So thank you so much. On that note, I want to introduce someone absolutely fantastic that, again, I'm hoping everyone on this call is aware of, Ivan Garcia. He is the Team Enough California's Lobbying Collective Program Lead, and you can also catch Ivan on tomorrow's session, Lobbying 101 and Voter Access. I'll be there. I hope you're there too. Ivan, want to take it away?
Thank you. Thank you, JJ, for the introduction. It is very hard to have to go after those two amazing people. Hi, everyone. My name is Ivan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction as well. Hi, everyone. My name is Ivan Garcia. I'm 17 years old, and I'm from Oakland, California. I want to start by thanking House Speaker Nancy Pelosi for her inspiring words and her decades of leadership in the fight to prevent gun violence. As she mentioned, the late Congressman John Lewis always encouraged young people to find a way to get in the way, and you can be sure that we will do just that. I'm a part of Team Enough in the gun violence prevention movement because I grew up living the daily effects of gun violence. I grew up in a community that has been plagued with crime and gun violence for decades now. A community labeled as one of the most violent in America at one point. So the issue of gun violence isn't a new one to me. As a child, I would wake up and go to bed hearing bullets fly through the air, left and right. And because of this, I also know the firsthand effects of having our elected officials not listen to us, as well as overlook and dismiss our concerns. I'm tired of not having my voice heard, and I know that there are solutions that can keep our community safe. So it is time for us to act, and time for those in power to act with the same urgency as us. We can't prevent gun violence until we ensure everyone can fairly participate in our democracy. And so in these final 43 days of this election, 43 days, I ask you to join us in our efforts to make sure every person in every community can overcome any barriers and have the right to vote, because voting access saves lives.
We the people, all the people, have the right to shape our democracy. Our right to vote is sacred. We have struggled for decades to preserve it and help make our nation safer. But still, our work continues.
We need change now!
This right is under attack again.
Mail-in ballots for November's election could be impacted.
With new obstacles and barriers from those seeking to divide us and stop us from marching, protesting, and voting. We need leaders who represent all of us to create the change we need.
Let's change the lawmakers.
Follow the call of history.
Not next month, not next year, but now.
And help keep us safe. We must fight. We must vote. That means you. Together, we will make a difference.
Well, I hope that all of you, I think, found that as inspirational as I do. I'm getting teary on a webinar. This does not bode well for the rest of the week for me and my emotional state. I think it's going to be a lot of tears and a lot of encouragement to get up and get moving.
We'll wait till the next session.
Yeah. And I think you're all going to find inspiration, and definitely, I think, a call to action from our next guest speaker, a shining star within Brady and definitely a personal hero of mine, Brady, California President Maddie Scott. Maddie, in addition to being the president of Brady, California, is the executive director of Healing for Our Families and Our Nation and San Francisco chapter leader of Mothers in Charge. She is a 26-year veteran in the fields of violence prevention, gun violence survivorship, and in activism. She is an inspiration to so many of us in this field who want to turn our pain into passion for fighting for the right thing. She is a delegate and works in prevention advocacy with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, as you saw in the video. She's also a gun violence survivor and activist. Her faith carried her through the tragic shooting death of her youngest son, George C. Scott. And so without further ado, because I could talk about Maddie all day, here she is, Ms. Maddie Scott.
Wow, thank you, JJ, for that introduction. Thank you so much. And what a powerful video. Thank you, Ivan, for your words. We love your energy and your fighting spirit that you and the young people of this generation bring to this movement, as we have seen over the last months. since the death of George Floyd. It's an inspiration. We need you and your voices, so don't stop. As Speaker Pelosi said, we don't agonize, we organize. And yes, we need everyone to vote. That's very important. We need all of us. If you want to exercise your right, if you want this drama and this madness to stop, we have to vote. We have to vote. It's so good to be here. My name is Maddie Scott. I'm the president of Brady, California, founder and executive director of Healing for Our Families in Our Nation, and the San Francisco chapter leader proudly of Mothers in Charge, founded by my sister Dorothy Johnson Spite of Philadelphia. I want to thank our fearless leader, Speaker Chris Brown, and my Congresswoman and dear friend, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, for those remarks. Whenever we call her, she always answers to the call. She's never too busy to serve the people, especially around gun violence and issues that affect all Americans. You both are an inspiration to all of us, and especially to me. And as Speaker Pelosi said, we don't agonize, we organize. And that's what we're doing today and all this week. So I just want to say a shout out to everybody who joined us, United Players and everybody, all of the mothers and Mothers in Charge, all of you young folks who get us up every day to do this work. My family, my children, my son Ron and Rontonette, and my grandchildren, I just thank you for allowing me to do this work. And I'm so proud and filled with so much joy today for our Brady team and Chris and Robin and all the volunteers who do this work every day behind the scenes, and Coletta Jackson and Sheila Burton and Elizabeth Torres, all my good friends who hold me up from day to day. I couldn't do this work without them. So I'm so glad that we're here today and all this week. So thank you for joining us, and welcome to Brady, California, leading the movement to prevent gun violence. We are now officially open our conference with our bell ringing ceremony, and we want to say thank you, God, for this opportunity. Thank you for the vision of Sarah and Jim Brady. Thank you for everything that you're doing for us to make lives better and to make our country and our nation safer. Thank you.
Before we begin any meeting or work, it is important for us to remember why we are gathered. As is our tradition, we toll the bell to remember the lives taken by gun violence every single day in our country. I ring the bell for our 21-year-old son Matthew, who is in New York City for a summer college break. He was shot by young teen robbers with a junk gun, or also known as a Saturday night special. Charlie and I do this work in his memory.
Hello, my name is Maddie Scott, and I'm the California president for Brady United Against Gun Violence. I'm also the founder of Healing for Our Families in Our Nation and the chapter leader for San Francisco Mothers in Charge. This is my son, George C. Scott, who was killed 24 years ago by senseless gun violence. His case remains unsolved. Why I do this work? Because I want to stop the killing and start the healing. I want to go to graduations and not funerals. I want justice for my son.
Thank you, Mary Lee and Maddie, for that. This is a tradition of ours to start every meeting or event with a bell ringing ceremony. So you will see other clips of that as we move on to other sessions. My name is Shika Hamilton. I'm the organizing manager at Brady. Thank you for joining us for this conference. Just to give you a few logistics, the next session of the conference will begin momentarily. To join, you will need to exit this Zoom webinar and click the link for the next one, which can be found in your Zoom chat now. It was also emailed to you and is available also on the event webpage. I hope you will all join us there to hear from experts and advocates, including Maddie, who you just heard from, talking about the intersection of racial justice and gun violence prevention, moderated by Brady's Oakland program manager, Erica Rice. Thank you and see you there.